Oh, hiya, love. So the very first recipe that I've decided to make is one box of naughty. And basically, I'm just going to upload these videos as I actually am needed to make that batch of fudge for orders. So it might take a while to work through the book. But yeah, I will upload them as and when they're actually needed. So it won't be in the order of the recipe book. But once I've worked through them all, I'll be very kind to everyone and I'll put them in order. So if you want to make them from start to finish, you can do. So you'll be able to find the recipe in my book, One Book of Fudge by Paul Lees, Make Homemade Fudge from the Heart, which is available on Amazon in a paperback, hardback and a Kindle. This is a proof copy I've got, so it won't look like this. It looks like an actual book. But I sold out of my own copies, so I don't have any at home. But yeah, one box of naughty you will find on page 22 of the recipe book. In all of my recipes, I let you know what ingredients you need. There's always a picture and then a method. So basically, loves, that's what we are going to work through today in this video. So to begin with, you need your sugar. And you need 450 grams of sugar. You need to make sure your scales are on the right measurement before you do anything. And you have to make sure that your scales are set to 0 as well. So obviously pour the sugar into your big old pan, which I showed you in the video where I explain what tools you need to make my fudge. So 450. If you go over, loves, that's absolutely fine. Use a spoon to take it out. I'm just going to adjust this camera actually slightly so you can see what I'm doing a bit more. There's not very much room on my sideboard to show you, but there's the pan and there's the ingredients going in. But yeah, I will figure that out at some point so you can actually see as I'm pouring it in. The next thing you need is your cream. So for one box of naughty, I use normal cream and I use clotted cream. So what I do though is I use a whole pot of clotted cream. Doesn't have to be this brand. So by the way, if I look all over, this is why I never film like this, because I always end up looking like I've got cross eyes, basically. I always forget to look at the camera properly. So forgive me if I'm looking and you think, where am I looking at? So I use a whole pot of clotted cream. So whatever size that pot is, because depending on what brand, you'll get a different amount of cream, which doesn't sound like it would be important. But it is important because what you want, cream-wise, is 400 millilitres in total, and that's it. So you don't want to put more than that because it will work, but the more accurate you get the fudge, the more likely it is to be successful every time you do it. So because that pot was 227, I now pour the rest of double cream to make up the 400 millilitres. So what you'll be aiming for on your scales is 850 millilitres. When you get to that, stop. The next thing you want to do is put your butter in. So I use unsalted butter, and you need 50 grams of this. Now this is going to sound mad, but because I've made over 1,500 batches of fudge, I no longer have to measure the butter, which sounds absolutely insane, but you need 50 grams, and I will do 50 grams, and I'll tell you how close I am. $48 grams. See what I mean? A couple of grams either side on this one is not going to make a difference. But again, you don't want to go too far over because the butter obviously needs to dissolve into the fudge. Otherwise, you'll get a fine buttery, almost like an oil slick on top of your fudge, which is still going to taste absolutely gorgeous, I'm not going to lie. But I just like it to be, basically these recipes have been tweaked and tweaked and tweaked to perfection. So what I've got here now is liquid glucose syrup, and you put 15 grams of that in. Now, not everyone uses glucose syrup in a fudge, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to. However, if you want your fudge to be smoother, the glucose syrup is really, really important to make it smooth. Still tastes lovely, but the glucose syrup does make a difference. The last ingredient that I need for this is salt. So I use Maldon sea salt because I'm from Essex and I went to school in Maldon. I went to Plume for sixth form. And yeah, very proud Essex boy from the Maldon and Dengie 100. So I use Maldon sea salt, but really what you need is just a pinch of salt to balance the sweetness. Right, so now we have our ingredients all measured out. Let's get cooking. So now all of your ingredients are in the pot and on the stove, and I put it on low. So I've got a gas hob and I put it on low because I like to do it low and slow so it doesn't burn. While I'm waiting for all of that to melt, I cut my baking paper into a square. I keep that bit on the side to line the tubs that I use, and then I get another tin and I place it in there and I flatten it down. And I flatten it and I keep that in there until later when I'm literally about ready to pour, so it gets it properly flat. So once it starts bubbling like that, that's when I start to slowly stir it. Oh, hiya love, sorry, these camera angles are absolutely shocking. I promise I will get better. So it has now, I'm gonna do this carefully. So as you can see, it's now all melted, and it's taken probably about 10 minutes-ish since I showed you the video. So making fudge, it does take time, but enjoy it. Every batch you make is made with love because you are forced to slow down to make it. It's so therapeutic. Once it melts, you get I always have a little plate here at the side just so I can put my spoon down on a nice clean surface, and You now get your temperature, your sweet thermometer even, and you wait for it to come up to temperature. So this will take quite a while depending on what heat you've got it on. So I've put it in there and it's gone straight up to 60 and it's got to get to 116. So it will take a while, but it will definitely be worth it. So this is about 5 minutes later when it's 105. The sounds and the smells are so relaxing, but don't go to sleep, loves. So it's at 110 degrees now, loves, and it sits here for quite a while, and then all of a sudden it will shoot up. So this is where you really need to keep an eye, and obviously you are looking for 116 degrees. So as soon as it goes past that 115 degrees, just by a little bit, then you whip it off. So it's at 115 now, loves, but don't be tempted to whip it off. It's got to go above it. And as soon as it does, take it off. So it's off, and now you set your timer for 5 minutes for it to cool down. So you'll see, love, in that 5 minutes, while it cools, it drops down in temperature dramatically. Now, it's got to be under 100 before you start stirring. But I always wait a full 5 minutes. I set the timer on my oven and I wait a full 5 minutes. Again, there we go. That's just because that's what I've learned is the best technique. So now we start stirring for 6 minutes. So this is what it looks like when you first start stirring it. After about 2 minutes, you will see, if you've heated it up to the right temperature, you will see that it starts thickening as you stir. You don't need to stir quickly, you've just got to consistently stir it. Oh, hi, you ducky loves. You're getting all the camera angles today. Yeah, so as you stir the fudge, you'll find, so we're at 4 minutes now, your arm starts to ache. In the beginning, you'll see I'm muscly now, loves. I've got strong arms from all this stirring. In the beginning, it's quite tough, but you get used to it if you stick with it. You'll find it gets heavier and heavier when you're making a traditional fudge. And as I said, it's not about the speed you're stirring, but it's about being consistent, because what it does is it stops the sugar crystals from forming. If you stop stirring before you're supposed to, if you've reached the right temperature, it will still set and it will still taste lovely, but it will be a bit grainier and it will be a bit more crumblier. To get the ultimate smooth texture, you want to stir consistently. Once you get to your 6 minutes, so I don't bother with all this test it in a glass of water stuff, never done that. My recipes have been worked out to the exact how it will set. Once you get to your 6 minutes, you stop stirring and then you pour. And if you've done your fudge properly, then you will always, always, always have a clean pot afterwards, which sounds obvious for a non-stick pot, but it's not. If you don't do it right, if you have put too much liquid in it, you've not stirred it for long enough and it's not going to set, that pot will not be clean. So I'll show you now what it looks like. So there you go, loves. That's your 1 box of naughty fudge, all done and ready to set. Now, the other thing I absolutely swear by is my covers. Which you can get on Amazon. They're pop-up food covers and they're washable, because a fudge has to set at room temperature. Depending on the weather and the humidity, it can take between 3 to 6 hours. So the setting time, it does change. In the winter, it sets quicker than in the summer. And you'll learn that as you make fudge. But anyway, if you followed me from the beginning of this video, you've now just made your very first batch of homemade fudge from the heart. It was 1 box of naughty from my brand new recipe book, 1 Book of Fudge, available to buy on Amazon. And if you like this video, then please like it, subscribe to me and share with all your friends, and buy a copy of the book, loves. And all that's left to say is, I hope you enjoyed it, and oh, bye, you loves.